1.24 acres. And that was, I think, one of the issues that was raised by the neighbors back then, but it was raised by the general area, is that have we set a precedent in terms of, by saying that 1.24 acres is an acceptable parcel, irrespective of the density option. We now have in reality 1.24 acre parcels sitting there in this C. And so people come along and say, geez, I've enjoyed my 7.15 acres here, but I'm ready to retire and move on and cash in, so maybe I can get them to rezone that back down to 2 acres or even one acre, because you've got 1.2 acres just 4 doors down from where I live. And those arguments come in and start picking away at the system. And we've seen that consistently done in various areas around the county. So, I think what's happening right here is probably a poster child, of what could be the future in terms of, do we, in essence, create a small little city there. And I think that was the argument that Mr. Purdy made at the Planning Commission when he whipped out all this history and talked about Spoonville. I guess this is the footprint of where Spoonville was, 100 years ago or more. And, the reality is the people who are living there, and I can understand and appreciate the concerns they have about the water table, to what extent, and not only water table, but also the septic disposal. And having sat 2 different times on the Lassen Water Regional Water Quality Control Board and dealing with what it means to do that. We've gotten both Johnsonville and Janesville, and I'm amazed that here it is 2015 that we haven't seen orders come down from an agency like Lassen causing, to bring about force a community sewer-wide or community water project being put into place because of the prevalence of these smaller sized parcels, and the fact that you have percolation over here, the issues in terms of dealing with percolation, it was scattered around, hit and miss. But those are the kind of things that I think the community out there is going to have to embrace, is that this is not the end. This is just the ongoing process of cutting it up. And so we have precedent, and I think that maybe at the same time we put a note on the map saying about the density option by creating this, that when we create small parcels because of the density option, that note should clearly state that, as a disclaimer, this is not a justification for future smaller parcels. And I think that needs to be conveyed as well. So with that, I'll defer to the rest of the board and I'll decide how I want to vote on this.
Well, I think there's been lots of discussion here, and if I could get you, somebody at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to either approve the appeal or deny the appeal. I think that's our job right now, one or the other.
Prior to going for the vote or motion, Mr. Chairman, if I could inquire, if this were approved and a note were placed on the map, might this board entertain an ordinance for consideration for adoption, which would essentially bind notes on maps?
I suppose that could be a future agenda item.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That was just a question.
Question to answer. You want to take a stab at it?
I'll take a stab at it. Let's see, let me get sure. What's the resolution on this one?
Well, there's either a resolution
Well, it would be the
to
resolution.
approve the appeal or to deny the appeal.
Well, it would be to approve the appeal, to approve the subdivision map application number 214-019 Cummins, subject to the conditions in here. And we would like the notes placed on the map that that all these smaller parcels are because of the density option used.
So, and in addition to that statement, a note should be placed on the final map stating that the 20.11 acre parcel remainder shall not be residentially developed, in conjunction with what you just said.
Yeah. So the smaller parcels, they're noted on the map, but they were created due to the density option. And that the 20.11 acre remainder south of the road is not to be developed for future residential time for Bob.
Boyd? Now, is there a note from 2002 on the map today?
Yes, I'm sorry, what? Yes.
And what's that say?
Similar thing to shall not be residentially developed.
Just the 20 acres, not the rest
Right,
of
just
the other
the,
two parts?
everything south of the road.
What does it say on the north side?
It doesn't say anything on
It has nothing, it says nothing on the north side.
that. Right.
But it will say something on the north side.
Because I thought back in 2002, that was the compromise like Jim was talking about. You were there voting on it. The compromise then is we'll give them the 4 parcels, and then that's it. But that was not put on the map. Wasn't noted on the map.
The only thing that was known on the map is that the 20 acres was part of that density option on the 4 parcels, but the further division of to create those additional 2 lots as a part of the compromise, that wasn't put on the map, and that's why it's back. And we really do have a serial subdivision going on here. I mean, obviously, the 4 parcels are less, and
Serial subdivision.
that's what it is. I mean, once I wrote that down, that's.
Well, that's why it is a subdivision versus a parcel.
Right.
This is an additive process, and so that triggered subdivision.
I think Mr. Almond is in. So did you get your motion complete, or is it clear what your
I
motion?
think
We have 2 different resolutions here, one for and one against. So 12 through 16 is one, and 17 and 18 in our packet. Those are the page numbers. Is the 2 distinct resolutions.
I think the, yeah, okay, wait for it. Wait for it. I think the action, the options for action requested are correctly identified on the agenda. And any supplements you want to make to that can be made. So,
Either approve the appeal, thereby approving the tentative subdivision map, and adopt the resolution approving the tentative map and adopting the negative declaration as the environmental impact, or deny the appeal, therefore disapproving the tentative.
correct, correct. Those are the 2
Which option are
possible
you
choices.
taking?
And if you want to tag on to that, so.
Well, if I could clarify that,
Well, okay, whose motion is it?
Aaron's trying to make a motion.
That's what I thought.
But what it comes down to is, depending on which one of those 2 options you go, if you go to support, to overturn the planning commission's denial and support the appeal, that's what Mr. Cummins is seeking.
Yes.
You would adopt this resolution, which is found on page 12, 13, and it has attachments of conditions, from which Mr. Albaugh is suggesting maybe there'd be a couple added to that. That would support the appeal and overturn the planning commission. So that's the resolution. It has findings. I mean, staff has done a good job of putting it together in a form that has the legal thing. If you want to deny the appeal and sustain the planning commission and leave the action as is, this resolution, which is page 17 and 18 in your packet, very short, basically accomplishes that. So
Yes, sir.
when the clerk writes down the motion, there's going to be a resolution number, but the question is, what is the body of the resolution? I just want to make sure that everybody knows they're voting on the same thing.
So to
So
answer
we're
your
voting on
question,
titles.
to answer your question, my motion is for in C, in the number 2 down at the bottom, which is to approve the appeal.
Okay, I don't know where you are.
On the agenda,
On the
C2.
agenda.
Agenda.
Okay, back on the agenda. Got
Sorry,
it.
C1.
C1,
Yes.
2.
Number 2.
Okay,
My motion is for that.
okay.
And that's this resolution.
Yes, and it's got the title right in it.
Resolution page
Adopted.
12.
You're approving the appeal.
But with that, I wanted to add to the conditions of approval
Okay.
Please be specific.
is that all the parcels north of Cummings Road have a note placed on them that they are that size due to, were created
Thanks, hold on. Created.
by the density option. And that the 20-acre parcel south of Cummings Road is not to have any future residential development
Okay.
because of the use of the density options on the other parcels.
Is that it?
Of course,
I think that should be it.
well, as a follow-up to that, do you want to give direction to staff Well, let that be part of the
Have
action.
a second?
That'd be part of that motion, but I think that could be a direction.
That needs to be
We're coming back to you on that anyways.
Okay. So that is a motion.
So do you have your motion, Madam Clerk? Okay.
Do I got a second to the motion? One more time, do I have a second to the motion? The motion dies due to the lack of a second after all that. Okay,
Any other motion?
I got 3 more supervisors here to make another motion. I can't make a motion, so. Chairman is forbidden to make a motion and second a motion.
Yes, you can. If you have one, you can make a motion.
Well, whatever. One of you guys step up to the plate.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Hempel, since he represents.
Does that represent the area?
And he
That's
lives,
your
he lives
district.
close to 500 feet from his lake.
Good plan, and it's in your neighborhood, and it's your district. Mr. Hemphill, we're gonna throw it at you.
I was gonna Chapmanize, I thought about this quite a bit, actually.
Chapman, I haven't heard that.
Yep, go through there.
Sue, you could have stopped, Max. Go ahead, Jack.
I understand, the process here and I think it's all right for people. I don't believe it's I have a fundamental problem with government telling people what to do with their land. But at the same time, being in my short tenure here, I've learned what we have zoning for. I've seen in my lifetime poor planning done in Lassen County. And as Jim alludes to all the time, that these were mistakes made back then. And there's been a lot of mistakes made in planning in Lassen County, and the sins of the past aren't paid by the generation of today, it's paid by the generations of tomorrow. And Mr. Cummings, I've seen that piece of property I mentioned earlier, it flooded 10 years ago. And as a supervisor, I can't sleep in good conscience and saying I'm approving some more housing when 10 years ago I helped a neighbor a half mile away, helped shore up his house because the water was coming across your property. Not to any fault of your own, and it was a 100-year flood, as Mr. Egan alluded to when I asked him about that. Was that a flood?
97.
2005. We had water come clear across there. And that's part of our job as government, is if we have the wisdom to prevent something happening in the future, that's what we do. When you drive into Susanville, the first building you see is Plymouth Bank. And if you look across there, it's about 10, 12 feet above the highway. It was done on purpose because those board members of Plymouth Bank were old codgers. They've seen that country flood before.
That is a floodplain.
Yeah, and when the water comes someday,
It's not illegal to build in a floodplain, you just have to build under different conditions.
yeah. So are we going to make a condition on that? I mean, how much restrictions are we going to place on this subdivision?
That's up to you. You want to make a motion? Now I can see why they call it Chapmanism. Chapmanized. You're right. Go ahead and make a motion.
I love it. I can retire. I can retire now because Hempel's here.
At this point, I want to deny the planning commission. I move we deny, or we approve the.
Do you want to deny the appeal, therefore approving the tentative parcel?
There's two choices. One, you can leave the planning commission's denial of the project intact and sustain that.
I support planning commission's actions.
Deny the appeal.
So that would be the second resolution.
Yeah.
Deny the
Yes.
appeal. Deny the appeal. Okay. There was a motion to deny the
Is that
appeal.
motion?
Yes.
It is a second to that motion. Come on, guys, it's lunchtime. Somebody want a second? Motion died, I'd like it a second.
Did I say something?
Tom or Jim, your turn.
Did I say something?
Yes, you could. Oh, that is, probably didn't.
In my letter, if this plan was not suitable to the supervisors, I presented another option. There's basically two options. I mean, if you want to uphold the decision of the planning commission, about a couple months ago, we had a severe windstorm came through, and it took out an animal shelter, which was one of the reasons why I had to submit a plan that squeezed the parcels down to 1.11 acres. With that animal shelter gone now, there's the option of approving a plan that would be 1.25 acres per parcel. And that would be a plan we could adjust then to make this at least not exact what the plan is now, but redo it to larger parcels that way. Another option I gave in the letter was we could split the, we could make this a 2.5 acre parcel instead of 2 1.25, and then go across the road and reactivate that 20 acres as a single parcel with a restriction of putting only a residence in this northeast corner, which is just right along the road adjacent to the parcels we're looking at now, and therefore keeping any building out in the middle of the field. So there's two other options you might be able to consider.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cummings.
You know, I was going to ask Councilor Stephanie.
I don't think we can do that unless that was also presented to the Planning Commission, because of course we are confined to consider the appeal of the decision made by the Planning Commission, not to kind of, well, if that's, sorry, I got this the wrong way. If that's not going to work, let's rechange the proposal and what's going to happen with the parcel. If you're considering an alternative proposal, it would have to go back to the Planning Commission for consideration of that alternate proposal. That's consistent with my remarks some minutes ago about the bounds of our decision. Whichever way it goes is the proposal that was denied. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Stephanie, but that's how I feel. We have to either approve the Planning Commission appeal or disapprove it or not. That's all we can do today. We can't change.
I would also add that, based on what I saw some moments ago, that there was action by the Planning Commission to deny the project. This is the appeal body for that commission, and it would require an affirmative action on the part of this body to overturn that. If no such motion is made to overturn the Planning Commission's decision.
By our non-action.
Correct.
Appeal.
Sustained by non-action. So you can't get a motion seconded to deny the appeal. That's the same as no action.
Okay.
Or let me put it the other way. No action, no motion is the same as denying the appeal.
So what I see here, Mr. Cummings, is the Planning Commission decision will hold.
So if we wanted to resubmit another plan,
Yeah,
it might be more conducive to the thinking.
we would have to start all over again, and then be mine then. Council can correct me. I think that's what Council just said, basically. You got to start all over, submit it to the Planning Commission.
And they may, I mean, I can't speak for them, I don't know, I wasn't there. But some of the concerns that they may have had associated with developing the number of parcels in the manner in which you were proposing may be ameliorated if you presented in a different fashion, attempting to deal with some of those issues. I don't know, I can't speak for them. But I want to give them the benefit of being open-minded and being willing to consider issues if they're freshly presented. I think they would.
And I would also encourage, if I could throw in here, and chat with some further, like that.
Just what you got.
Make it fast, you're into my lunch hour.
I know, I'm getting really hungry too, we have to break. Is, what I see is missing in this discussion by the planning commission and to the degree by the staff, even though I think the staff is maybe more attuned to it. There was a lot of, there was an administrative record that dealt with these properties in this immediate area. I mean, all from 2002. And there's also an administrative record from the discussions on the zoning and the general plan discussions there in the late 90s, primarily 99 and 2000, when the 2000 revised general plan was adopted, okay, that focused on not just Mr. Cummings' properties, but all the properties in that immediate area and how that, and I think it would behoove us to go back and review what those commitments were. Now, maybe Mr. Cummings had an arrangement with Mr. Updegrove to do a phase thing, a two-phase thing, but whether that was something that was clearly a part of the public record back in 2002. And my impression, and it goes back to what Mr. Hemble raised, and I just thinking about it, my impression was in 2002 when the board acted on overturning the planning commission in terms of allowing the creation of those 4 parcels up above, that was where the line was drawn, that there wasn't going to be further parcelization. At least that was, and I just want to know if that was embodied in the record at that time or not, and I think that needs to be clarified.
So, Mr. Chairman, are you suggesting that you're wanting to postpone a decision?
No, I'm
Okay.
not suggesting, I'm just saying is if this is going to come back again, if Mr. Cummings is going to go back and retool the project and try to address some of the concerns that came out of this here. Now, Mr. Alba pointing out that the density node option that was placed on the map back in 2002, I assume is when this was done.
Yeah, so, I mean, this, well,
Yeah.
So it begs the question, Maureen, can he even come back and?
Yeah,
and redo it?
but it's not just, it's one thing to have the map node, that's important, you can't lose track of that, triggers that. But it'd be interesting to look at the file and look at the minutes of the meetings. I doubt the tapes even exist anymore of the particular discussions. But look at the minutes and look at the letters that were submitted. And there was a lot of input. It wasn't done in a vacuum. It was pretty hot flashed. In other words, I think that is what gets lost in the shuffle of things. And I think that history does matter, even though we did have a county administrator one time tell us that history doesn't matter, but it does.
Okay, let's, I think we're done with that item. We'll recess to 1:30 and at that time go back into closed session. And we have to come out of closed session after we get an interview done and finish the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Which is quite a
On
lot.
the closed session is scheduled, we have the last interview at 2:30, so you're probably not looking at open session until 3 o'clock.
That was my guess.
So for people who are here for later agenda items, probably have a little bit longer lunchtime.
Okay. Adjourn until 1:30.
Thank you. No, take care of it. Bye-bye.
Meeting back to order. Let's take up F1.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, F1 is the Doyle Parks Committee, and appointments to the Doyle Parks Committee. If you look at the packet, you'll notice that there are interestingly 9 persons on this committee. It appears from the, that's a heck of a committee. Yeah, and it looks like a number of those folks have been on that committee for a number of years. And it looks like all 9 of them want to be on it again. And it also looks like all 9 of them are up now. There's no staggering of the terms that I can tell. And so that is
It's an easy one.
yeah, it appears that we have written confirmation from all 9 of the individuals listed on the agenda that are requesting reappointment. And I don't know if there are any questions on pinch hitting for the clerk. And you're welcome. She's happy.
Oh,
to
yeah,
answer.
let's get them all back. They actually function pretty well.
Got a motion?
Yep.
Motion is second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Go to information consent calendar. Anything there to be taken off for separate discussion? Seeing none, we got a motion to pass the information consent calendar as written. Second. Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. I think about 3 pages. We have, how long is this one going to take?
Just as long as you want it to.
2 minutes and 56 seconds.
Yeah. Go ahead, Richard, you got this.
All right. What you have in front of you is a recommendation for some budget adjustments regarding BLF sales tax realignment. And due to AB 85, the state is funding the social services realignment through the BLF sales tax realignment instead of social services sales tax realignment. It's a change from the prior year, and adjustment will cover the revenue increase in the general fund and transfer of the funding to the social services tax realignment.
So it's cost neutral, it's just a,
Right, we're changing from one budget unit, one fund to another.
I would move Mr.
I'm sorry, just to comment on that, Health and Social Services was already here and asked for the increased appropriation to accommodate this increase.
I would move Mr. Chairman that we approve the budget transfer.
Motion is second. Any more discussion?
One question on this, the DLF, is that actual DLF? The vehicle license fee, is that the actual fees for Lassen County?
That's our share of the vehicle license fees.
I guess we should say so it's clear on the tape in the minutes, and that I would move that we approve the recommended budget adjustments for general fund increased revenue and the state BLF sales tax realignment and increasing operating transfers out by $1,623,220 and to decrease from the social services sales tax realignment fund 166 revenue and sales and use tax, increasing the operating transfer in by $1,623,220.
We got a second on that. Any more discussion? Questions, answers? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
4/5 votes, you like?
I take the 4/5 vote. Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Supervisor Chapman?
Aye.
Supervisor Alba?
Aye.
Supervisor Hinkle?
Aye.
Supervisor Hammond?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyle?
Aye.
You got 15 seconds left to stall. We'll have the clock item.
All right, staff, be getting ready.
A few minutes.
Staff, be getting ready for 11 o'clock public hearing. If we are on time.
We'll be on time.
And away they go.
Okay, I open public hearing at 11 o'clock and ask for staff report. And that public hearing is application 014-019, Mitchell Cummings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good morning. Maureen Anderson, Planning and Building Services. And as you said, we're here today to consider an appeal of the Planning Commission's March 4th, 2015 disapproval of subdivision application 2014-19, which was for the purpose of dividing 25.75 acres into 3 parcels and a remainder. The proposed parcels were, parcel A was to be 3.42, parcel B 1.11, and parcel C 0.11. The remainder parcel was to be 20 acres, 0.11 acres, excuse me, and that would be a remainder parcel not for residential development. So the application, the zoning is A2B4, but the D allows for a density option, so that basically means that you can make smaller parcels if you want to, if the board wants to, if the Planning Commission wants to, as long as the overall density stays the same. So that's what Mr. Cummings proposed to do, and that's how he got the smaller parcels, as you see there, the 2 little ones next to the original. And this is a subdivision because some years ago there was an application for a parcel map, which is right above it, and that's those 4 parcels right above the subject parcel. So again, this did go through the environmental review process. It went through TAC, it went to Planning Commission, and actually was heard twice, and ultimately it was denied. Most of the consideration from the Planning Commission's perspective was the density option, and that it was a departure from other parcels in the area, which were mostly 4 acres in size. Again, what Mr. Cummings did above there was slightly smaller some years ago when he did that application. And this is, I think, what his attempt is to finalize his application and have 2 more parcels. So this map indicates what the zoning is in and around the parcel area. You see the green is A2B4. You have some A2B2 above it, but most of those parcels are not 2 acres, they're larger. So
A2B2, that's the blue?
that's the blue, yes. And the green is A2B4. And below, it's south of the island, basically, coming from the road makes that island, is mostly agricultural and large parcels zoned for ag. And you see the brown is a big swath that goes towards Standish, which is also zoned agricultural. So, excuse me, everybody seems to be either sick or getting over being sick.
No?
Well, I'll add a third category, pending. So, excuse me. So, we went through, as I said, Planning Commission twice. We had a split vote the first time. We got the 5th member there, and the second time, and it was denied. And so, just from staff's perspective, the general plan does promote the idea of clustering, and so we didn't really have a problem with it. The process worked, though, because the Planning Commission heard it, there was opposition, and that's what it's all about. And so several of the neighbors showed up and were not in favor of the application, and that ultimately swung the Planning Commission to a denial. And that's why we're here today. So I'm willing to answer any questions. I know the applicant is here. There is an outstanding item. The packet is defective.
In what way?
Wait.
In what way?
In what way is we did not include the appeal letter by Mr. Cummings.
The actual request to appeal the decision of the Planning Commission to this body?
Yes.
All right. And we just had a conversation about that, didn't we, in the hallway?
We did.
And did we take that up with Mr. Talia to discuss whether they'd be agreeable to continue today or whether we should postpone?
We did, and the verdict was that they would like to continue. Now, I'm taking this conversation with Mr. Talia as he's representing Mr. Cummings. So I have not spoken to Mr. Cummings whether he wants to proceed, but I'm presuming his counselor does.
Let me ask a specific question. what specifically is missing? Just the one letter?
Just the one letter.
And can you identify the letter by date and from whom and to whom?
I can. That's not it.
And presumably it's not in the board packet either.
Correct.
Okay.
This
the point.
is the actual letter, and it is dated March 13th, 2015, and it is a letter of appeal to the Board of Supervisors. You see several letters that Mr. Cummings has written that are in the packet, but those are mostly all to the Planning Commission. This did escape the packet in the
And
process.
that's from Mr. Cummings to the
Board
Board
of
of Supervisors.
Supervisors,
And it's
correct.
dated, I'm sorry, what date?
It's dated March 13th, 2015.
Let me ask a quick question, if I may. Mr. Talley and Mr. Cummings, before we proceed, obviously, you folks generated that letter and lodged it with the county. It didn't make the packet today, and I regret that, but that's nevertheless the state of affairs. Do you want to continue?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
The only
Greg?
problem is Maury, the letter I have is dated March 11th. And is March 13th the receipt date?
Yes, I'm sorry, the receipt date is what I'm talking about.
Very good.
So are we talking about the same letter?
Yes.
Okay. And so, gentlemen, Mr. Cummings, Mr. Talley, you'd like to proceed anyways, despite that perceived irregularity?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have a copy for the board, though?
Yeah, I think Galen is busy making copies. Are these all the copies?
Yeah,
How many are here?
there should be 15, I believe. Can I see what you have?
And is it a fair statement that the content of the letter, there's nothing really, any new material in there? It generally restates your position and the basis for your appeal. And you've made the arguments that are contained in many of the letters to the Planning Commission, and you'll be making those again today, is that right?
Essentially, yes.
Essentially, it's basically the same substance.
Yes.
It does address another subject that's not in the other count.
Let's get the council, let's take a couple minutes and let us just read it.
I think that's a perfectly
It's
sound
only,
idea.
it's only a page and a half.
Thank you.
Give us a couple minutes here.
When you get time, I'd like to ask more a question. Maybe after.
states about the chairman of the planning commission had a conflict of interest. Do you aware of anything?
I'm not aware of it.
I want to be more aware of
Is that Chairman Solomon? I think he's still the chair of the planning commission.
Yes, and I don't know exactly where he lives, so Galen's trying to get a distance.
He's nowhere near this.
I mean, I don't know.
If we're talking about 500-foot rule and the like.
I don't know if that we don't have any stipulation of what we do here today. I was just curious about what went on the planning commission.
I think we're talking more in his letter about just the common law conflict requirement of disinterested diligence. He spoke out and said certain things that caused Mr. Cummings to feel there was a bias, but I don't think that's material to today.
Okay, good enough. Go ahead, staff report, are you?
Also, I just want to let the board know that there has been correspondence introduced just now. One is from Patty Gomez, and it's quick, so I'll just read it into the record. As a property owner next to the private utilities, we feel at this time, given the current circumstances, the proposed parcel division would create a density inconsistent with the surrounding rural area. In this high desert county, or excuse me, I think it's supposed to be county, we have more drought years than wet years to replenish the groundwater, so this project, if approved, could create 7 home sites, wells, septic systems on 10-acre parcel. Concerned neighbor Patty Gomez and Ross Gomez. And then also, there's a letter that came in. That I'm fumbling around for here. This is, the letterhead is Paul and Brookshire Mehawk, and I probably slaughtered all those. Mehawk.
Brooke and Paul Mehawk.
And it says, Supervisors, we are asking that you not grant the waiver for the proposed parcel splits on Common Road. We have experienced a drop in the level of our own well over the last 5 years. Therefore, we do not believe the area could sustain the additional residential wells needed to support the proposed properties without adversely affecting the existing homes in the area. Your consideration in this matter is greatly appreciated. Sincerely. Those are the 2 items that just came.
If you would please give those to the clerk. And before we get to Mr. Chapman's question, if I could, just on a matter of procedure, we were talking about this letter that didn't hit the packet, and that's the letter dated March 11, received March 13 from Mr. Cummings to the supervisors, really his letter of appeal. In the 3rd paragraph, it references an Exhibit A, which is attached. I don't see it, but is that part of the packet? That, of course, is, sorry, maybe you want to come back to that. And then also, the next paragraph references a letter that he had prepared for the Planning Commission for your review that was also purportedly attached, but it's not to this. And I presume that's in the packet, and want to make sure that we have all the material that the applicant wants to submit and did submit for the board's consideration.
Are you asking me? I believe the conditions of approval are in the packet twice. Once from the Planning Commission and once for today's proposed if the appeal is granted.
And that's the first attachment or Exhibit A that you're talking about, the conditions of approval, correct? In that 3rd paragraph.
Well, I didn't write this letter of appeal, but I think it is.
Yeah.
The conditions of approval, I think.
Well, there should be a letter and 4 attachments.
Yes.
So this paragraph 3 is stating that attached is the original resolution from the original split above there. And, no, I do not believe that is in the packet.
The conditions of approval are in the packet.
This is Exhibit A.
And he attached the 2 pages to his appeal letter.
I'll take your word for it then.
They're in there twice.
Okay, then I think the question has been answered by the applicant.
So what was Bob's second question?
The next paragraph references a letter that had been prepared for the Planning Commission for the board's, this board's review. It lays out Mr. Cummings' plans in regards to the property for his family, as well as his input about the objection of the distant neighbor. question is that in the packet as well? We want to make sure that everything has been included that Mr. Cummings wanted to include as part of his appeal. I don't want there to be something that gets left out and have a decision made on an incomplete record.
And I note that in the packet there are several letters from Mr. Cummings, so I would not be in a position to identify one from the other.
Why can't we copy it now, the way it was submitted, and just take a minute? Because I wouldn't bet my life that letter to the planning commission is in the packet.
Mr. Cummings, if you have that, I'll see to it copies are made and distributed promptly.
It's a copy of the letter I submitted. This is the letter you read.
Yes?
This here is in your packet to the commission.
Yes?
This here is Exhibit A that should be attached. It talks about.
And that's in twice, right?
This talks about the
Conditions of approval.
Condition to that we're following through with now.
Yes.
With the previous.
But that's in there twice, correct?
That's out of the packet as far as I saw. So just
Okay.
this is the map that shows the vicinity, section 6 actually, where my property is.
Okay.
It's attached.
Okay, so which one specifically should we copy for you?
Well, it's Exhibit A, mainly refers to this.
I think we should copy all the attachments to it.
That's a great idea. May I have that? And I'll just get a bunch of copies
And
made.
then the map on the last page.
Okay. There you go. Thank you. Those were all the questions I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any questions by the board of the staff report?
Yes, I do have one question, and I just want to make sure I understand what I'm looking at. I think I do, but,
In all material.
yeah, it's, it goes back to the heart of the decision that was made by the planning commission, and it talks, I mean, I'm looking at this map, and this is on page 28, and then I'm looking at kind of aerial map that's on page 54, this one, and I'm looking at your colored map on the screen, and from what I understand, Mr. Cummings owns, based on the parcel map, the parcel that's identified with the 40 circle and the one with 44, and there's references in, I think it's the letter of March 11th, which we just got today, where it talked about the APN number 1310940 and 44. So Mr. Cummings is looking at those two parcels as his total holdings, and when you add 20.11 acres and 10 point, anyway, it comes to 30 acres roughly, give or take a little bit. And using the zoning of A2, B4, he divides 4 into 30 and comes up with 7. So in that respect, he's looking at it from a point of view of entitlement as to how many parcels he can create out of, the holdings he has, which is, I don't know if it's one parcel that's split by the road or if it's two parcels, but regardless, it's about 30 acres. And, obviously when zoning's done, and I think this is for the benefit of our newer members of the board, and this, what I did see in the administrative record or file is the history. What I see the planning commission proposing, or at least the majority of them going along, because my commissioner voted no. He voted to support the application. And Mr. Purdy came and saw me afterwards and told me that he talked about Spoonbill, and he was going back to the history, and he thinks that historically this is how the property was being used. So he was at odds with the commission originally, I guess, in January. They split 2-2 with one of the members being gone, and then that member came back and wound up abstaining, but then one of the people who voted, I guess, yes,
For it.
changed and voted no, and so it became a 3-1 vote in the end. But this isn't the first time, and I'm sure it won't be the last time where we see, and what Mr. Purdy indicated to me was talking about using the density option, where if you have a fair amount of property, you kind of crowd everybody. I think this is similar to the dispute that's going on right now up on Day Road in the Northwest Fire District area in Aaron's backyard, up in the upper corner of the county, where they kind of basically herd all the properties into a particular area and leave the remainder of the property is kind of like as this, that's the trade-off, is having the open thing. And unless you specifically put on some maps that this is now, even though you have the zoning that shows that you could go down to smaller parcels, it opens the door for later on. So 3 staffs later, you have staff changeovers over 20 years, 10 years, however often, maybe every year. And you get board changeover, and now it's, jump ahead, it's 2025. This is 2015, and the board that was here in 1980 and 1985 or 1990, I can tell you had this very issue before them. And, okay, those 4 parcels were created on the top, and we're creating this kind of like, okay, we're going to crowd everything over here, and we're going to leave all this here kind of open. But if you don't track that, and the only way you can is if you put it on the map, I don't see that being proposed in this action. It means that you come back later on, and you begin, okay, now you got a 20-acre parcel on the south side of the road, and without any reference to the density on the north side of the road that was a trade-off back when, you come back in and you divide 5 parcels out of that particular one down the road. And I've seen that play out several times. And the new board takes it and says, well, we're property rights advocate, and whatever the property owner, he should be able to get what he wants. So that totally undermines, in my opinion, the zoning. Now, I'm not sure if that's exactly the case that's going here, but if the board does proceed to overturn the planning commission, and there are 3 votes to turn it down, and you do go with this property density where you're creating more parcels on the north side and smaller area in exchange for keeping the bigger parcel on the south side more intact. Put something on there to make it so that 5 or 10 or 20 years from now, the new owner of that property, okay, with that zoning can't come back and say, I have an entitlement now to be able to further divide that, because then we'll wind up with a lot more density than what you hung out with. And I think the concerns the neighbors raised becomes a reality. So I just want to throw that question out, and I just want to find out from staff, is that what is being proposed, this density transfer, where the 20 acres is going to be kept more intact and not divided down in lieu of having more intense divisions on that parcel above?
That is exactly what the staff is conveying to you, and that is what my understanding with Mike all the way through since the beginning, 2002 or whatever it was. That's always been the catch. This is why we can do this. And from staff's perspective, we supported it because the general plan supports that clustering.
Right.
Whether it's the current thing of the board, the flavor of the board now, or not, but we take our marching orders from that book. And so the first
debate was
division,
hotly contested too,
right,
deciding that clustering option in the general plan.
So the first development also contemplated, he from the beginning has said that will be what's left open space. And so we put a note on the map when we did it that this is not for residential development.
So in those the 4 parcels that were created, it would be 45, 46, 47, 48. Was that part of the original 44 parcel? Were those 4 parcels created out of the
Yes, that was one big parcel.
That was one big parcel.
Mhm.
So we created 4.
Right.
And now he wants
2002?
2002-ish.
Okay, that's fine.
And then and now he wants to come back and create 3 more parcels,
Right,
putting the bulk of them on that 5.64 acre piece above and reserving the 20 below.
exactly.
It would be, well, be 3,
Well, it's actually 2 more parcels.
Yeah,
2 more parcels.
The shading, it's split, that bottom 5 acres with the existing family home, that will become smaller to create the 1.1.
And then the remainder would be connected to
The other
4
side
acres below.
stays
And they would be
undeveloped.
restricted from any further,
Absolutely.
and that's on the map, providing that restriction.
I was just looking at the conditions. I thought more that it was in the conditions, that there would be that
Well,
restriction.
the letter shows it on the Exhibit A.
Yeah,
Shows
that there will be no place on the map.
Okay, because I think it's extremely important that if that's indeed where they go, because in the past, the county didn't do that. I mean, they agreed to do it in the meeting, okay, but the minutes eventually get buried or disappear.
Sure.
And what's in
And
the
people
recorder's
change.
office and the guy comes in, the title company does their search and gives somebody a clean title on a piece of property, and it's got the zoning, and he's got 20 acres, and voila, I got 5 parcels. Not realizing those 5 parcels developing had already been traded off to create these little ones above.
Absolutely.
And that's right now underlining